Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of On Board. I'm Steve Bonnets. Joining me is Tom DeBello and Board President Joe Cerisi. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having us, Steve.
I'm sorry about the voice, though. It's just kind of a...
No, I thought it was like that gritty thing you're doing, like some voiceovers.
Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it happens. It's been a rough time right now, but hey, listen, you
Too
guys...
much partying, Bonnets.
You guys will go with the flow.
This is his radio voice,
Right.
not his TV voice.
Oh, okay.
He didn't
Yes.
switch over.
Right.
That's correct.
It's like
That's
Kermit
correct.
the Frog.
Right.
Well, we're back at another show.
Yep.
Thank you very much for being here. We just had the January board meeting, and what came out of that is a town hall meeting. We're putting an expansion on the high school, talking about putting an expansion on,
Proposing, right.
proposing, and we're going to have a town hall meeting. Let's talk about the town hall meeting. I think it's set for March 23rd.
Right. Well, this is our third town hall meeting in the last 7 years,
Last
8
few
years.
years, yeah.
The other two have been extremely successful, so we decided to go one more time. Oh, not one more time, do it again. It'll be here at the high school instead of at the 9th grade center. There was a little bit back and forth, but it's better equipment here at the high school to do it. But
Correct.
This is to really educate the public and fill in whatever holes there may be. You know, when this conversation began about the needs of the high school, there were a lot of rumors that were out there, and we all know it. We don't need to hash this for an hour. Anyone that's seen a board meeting, read the newspaper, has seen that over the last few years, there have been lies and deceptions and things put out there, and it's time. We've tried to make it clear, but in this meeting, we'll really clear up and put all the facts out there.
What can people expect when they come to this meeting?
They can expect to walk away with understanding what's happening and seeing what the needs are of our students in our community. You know, Tom has been a big advocate of making sure that the facts, every meeting, correcting the facts. Well, not correcting the facts, making sure the facts are there and putting the rumors to rest. Anyone can start a rumor. And, you know, you could say, well, the district's spending $10 million on a fitness center, which we heard in nauseam.
12 million.
Oh, we're up to 12. That isn't a fact. The fact is the high school has grown, and we need to do something for the growing population. The fact is that when the high school was expanded, it wasn't done properly with the expansion. There was no forethought of what was coming down the road. The fact is we have to do something, otherwise we're going to have an issue. We're even seeing it, we saw recently in our hallways, where the bottlenecks are horrible because it wasn't looked at as part of the expansion. So this town hall meeting will not only talk about the needs of the high school expansion, but we'll also talk about what will happen financially and then the overview on some district things that are going on.
What is the proposed expansion going to consist of?
Want to take that one?
Yeah. So, just what Joe was talking about with the, what was done in the past. This high school's been expanded, I guess, 3 times since the beginning of and over time, each time the high school was expanded, there was more classrooms than that were added, which are important. But what wasn't expanded was they didn't take care of what we call the infrastructure or the core of the building. The cafeteria, which is part of that core, was expanded to accommodate the growing student population. But the other areas that weren't expanded was the whole physical education area, and then the whole performing arts wing. Those two, which is called the core, because all the students participate in both of those areas throughout the day. And we have roughly between 9th to 12th grade, we have roughly about 2,300 students. And those facilities weren't built to handle that many. And the student population is growing. The feasibility studies have come back, and we're looking at about 1,000 student growth within the next 8 to 10 years. So we're going to be expanding the physical education portion of the building, and we're expanding the performing arts. Not all, I guess it's all performing arts, right? So it's for choral, orchestra, band. So in total, we're looking at somewhere around 28 to 30,000 square feet. We got rough estimates, which was showing that the total expansion would run somewhere between $7 and $10 million. Over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of options that have been put out there. There's been a lot of what-if scenarios. There's been a lot of, well, we think it would cost this, we think it would cost that. And as Joe said, at a certain point, we just got fed up and said, enough. We're gonna do this in a systematic approach. We're going to first get true architectural drawings of what these expansions would look like or could look like, making sure all the structural stuff is in place. Then once we have that information, then we could tie actual cost to that expansion. When we're able to do that as a board, then we could sit back and take all the key factors and facts into consideration, and then make the appropriate decision based on the facts.
Well, one thing we did do, in addition to that, is we met with focus groups and small groups, administration, faculty, students, community,
Teachers, right.
teachers, to see what their needs were. It just wasn't, oh, we're going to build because we need to build. No, what do we really need? Because the one thing that Tom and I were blown away by when we got on the board years ago and saw what the expansion looked like was, in the performing arts area, we lost all storage. We have very little storage. And people may say, well, what's the big deal? You have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of instruments and music that they have to try and find places for now. So there's money there that they're crushed in different places. So that was part of okay, what do we need not only for our students, but what about storing things and to make sure that this stuff lasts over the years.
So during the town hall meeting, they're going to see the drawings. The community's going to be able to
right.
see the drawings.
Right. This is a
sketch.
long process. So there's going to be architectural, what they call renderings, which are drawings, right? They're not going to be the final drawings, but we're getting to the point where we'll have a really good idea of what it's going to look like. We could start to zero in on what those actual costs are. And Joe and I have been a big proponent over the last several months to bring this to the public, although we get accused time after time that we're trying to ram this, through, which is not true. But our goal is to present all of the facts. We pushed to have this town hall meeting. I talked about it for 2-3 months, and then last week I finally just said enough. I made a motion to have the actual town hall meeting. The board, agreed to have the meeting. That's what we scheduled on the 23rd, March 23rd. We're really excited about it because we're going to go to the public, and we're not going in with any decisions or anything. This is where we're at today, and we really want the community to come, ask the questions, and put their opinion out there. What do they feel? Joe and I have also talked about possibly going to referendum on this.
Right.
Once we have all the facts, put it out to the community. And I think the town hall meeting will really drive if we go to referendum, or because it's important that the community understands, and they truly have to buy into it as well. And for them to do that, they have to know the facts.
Right.
They can't draw their conclusions based on the lies and propaganda that's been put out there because, and we've said this before, people in like Royersford have been scared into the point where we're going to raise taxes so high that they're going to lose their homes. That's how pathetic this has gotten.
Now, if it goes to referendum, is it going to be in the primaries?
It
Or
probably
do-
won't make
probably
the
won't
primary.
make the
It probably
primary.
have to be the general.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But again, the town hall meeting will really drive,
The next step.
the next step of what we do. A couple times that we had the town hall meetings, we had like 700-800 people show up.
Right, and it's both sides. And look, there's nothing wrong with dialogue on both sides of the aisle. We don't feel that it's appropriate to have people come out screaming and yelling and throwing things and, out of hand, but come out and express your opinion. As a matter of fact, at one of the meetings, we had a couple gentlemen come out and talk about how they felt about the project, who were not as so much in favor of it, but then got information on it that they never understood, and they understood why. Now, whether we changed their mind, whether they were in favor of it or not, they understood it a lot more.
Well, the one guy, he actually came to the last property meeting.
And finance.
And he said, wow, I didn't know. He goes, I only saw what I read in the newspaper, and this is, and we presented, and he heard all the facts, and he said, well, this is different than what I've been led to believe. And he understands. We talked about this, and I know this kind of leads into some of the other topics we want to discuss. But we talked about this before. Springford is one of the top performing school districts in the state. We're a highly recognizable school district. People are moving in here because Springford's success. both from an academic standpoint, from a performing arts standpoint, from an athletic standpoint. So they're really, and what happens is that because the success is driven by success, right? And I've mentioned this before. So what happens as more families come into the district, and I understand the population goes up, but then small businesses open up, and then corporations, I mean, they're looking and they're staying in our area, they're expanding. GSK is putting $100 million expansion on because of the success of the district. Success breeds success, and that's what's going on here, and that's what people need to understand, because failing school districts, property values are falling. People can't sell homes. I mean, businesses are leaving. Businesses are going out of business. So small businesses are going out of business. They're leaving. People are losing jobs. The teenagers can't get jobs because there's no businesses. So it's a ripple effect. So, and that's what we're trying to do. Is it's not about just the school district. It's about the community and the success of the community and everything that's growing around it. And that's what we're proud of.
And it's March 23rd,
Right.
Yes,
7
here at the high
p.m.
school.
here at the Springford High School in the
Right.
auditorium.
Yes.
Now, you talked about the successes of Springford. I mean, there's a lot of good things that are happening around Springford. Just to name a few, the Career Center. I mean, where my kids go, we don't have that.
Right.
The students here at Springford have a great place to go to learn about colleges and get the process the right way. I mean, there's a lot of good things that are happening here.
Well, the Career Center is, I think, in its 6th or 7th year right now. And I've seen, with my son being a senior, I've seen hands-on the last couple of years of how often he's in there, how much they guide them to look at the colleges that may fit them, and how much he's been helped to pick the right college and go through the application process. And like you said, where your kids go to school, they don't have any of that. And if parents aren't aware of some of that, and my parents never were when we were growing up, they didn't understand that process, that also hinders the student. So having this, and it's also, I think the other part of it is there are also counselors to say to our students, what do you really want to do? Let's look into this to make sure this is what you really want, because you're making a huge commitment.
Very tough decision for students now. At being a junior or a senior, how do you know what you want to do?
Right, you don't.
And what do you know what's out there?
Right.
There's so many different things.
Well, I also think what it's done for us is it's opened up the eyes of universities who never knew Springford existed.
Right.
I remember speaking to a college, I don't remember where we were, and talking about Springford, and they said, where are you? And we said, well, we're in Limerick and Royersford and whatever. They said, oh, we don't know what that is, but we go out to the Hill School. I said, you go right through our school district as you're going out to the Hill School. Oh, really? Well, how come we never heard about you? Now that those colleges are here. We've seen our students get into an array of colleges. And one thing that we've always been pushing over the years is not that our kids have to go to the Ivies, but they should be able to get into the Ivies. They can choose to go wherever they want, anywhere, state schools, out-of-state schools, but there should be a plate of all different choices rather than the same 7 schools. And I think we finally have seen that over the last 4 years or 5 years. No, what, 4 years or so.
4 years, yeah.
And then in the last couple of years, we've seen the caliber of college. They may not be able to afford to go, they may not go, but where we're getting accepted into, we're getting into those high-end Ivies. I think someone this year is waitlisted at MIT, that's what makes the communities, and it shows, wow, I want to move there, like Tom alluded to, because my kid has an opportunity to at least go into these higher-end schools.
Well, we talked about before the show about the rank of the school district.
yes.
And we talked about, Tom, you rattled off a bunch of things. Talk about that a little bit, how we rank so high, and it's because of, the third largest district, in Montgomery County,
Right.
but our millage is so low.
Right. So Springford, building off what Joe was saying, was that Springford has become one of the top performing school districts in the state. We're in the top 10 in Pennsylvania out of 500 school districts. We got national rankings where we're in, the high school was in the top 500 high schools, when we moved up. We're like within 300 from 400 and some. So we moved up, and we were never ranked before. So that's an accomplishment. From never being ranked to getting ranked to actually moving up in a ranking.
Exactly.
So we're getting national recognition. We've got this, one of the best performing school districts in the state. We have students now. When the Career Center, they put on the map little pins where all our students, And I remember when I first got on the board, like all the pins were in a little section, right? Now it's spread out across and we got kids going to MIT. We have a kid going into West Point. We have kids that a ton of kids that go to U Park at Penn State now. They're going to Westchester, all the local schools, and schools other schools in Pennsylvania. They're going across the country. We have kids going to college in California. I mean, it's just running the full gamut. We even have, Ohio State is, from a band perspective, marching band perspective, is considered one of the top marching bands in the country because of the theatrics that they do on the field. It's incredible. I don't know if you ever saw them during football games, but the way they move, like they do like Michael Jackson moonwalking backward. I mean, it's really cool when you're looking down as the band's performing. Right. Well, we have a student that graduated 2 years ago that has worked extremely hard, but what he achieved here at Springford, he was able to get and be part of that band, which is a huge accomplishment. That's like being, for a football player, that's like playing Division I football at one of the top, Penn State or Michigan, whatever it may be. Sure. I mean, I'm trying to think of, Alabama, Clemson. I mean, these are all top schools, and that's the kind of achievement that's coming out, and that's what's being recognized. And the things that are happening is that we have colleges now that are saying, wow, the kids coming out of Springford are extremely prepared, to come into the college life. I mean, we've put stuff in place like. We heard it the other night about the Innovation Center, which is like a spin-off of what's known as Makerspace, but it's for the kids to go into the Media Center and do STEM type.
STEAM.
STEAM. I was going to say STEAM. STEAM type initiatives where there's an engineering section, there's recording. I mean, there's all kind of different things. It's for kids to explore, from a science standpoint, as well as what we do from an art standpoint. We have what we rolled out is the STEM initiative or STEAM initiative at the elementary schools as RamQuest. I mean, so we're rolling that into starting from basically first grade. We have the hybrid learning going on at Spring City and expanding at Royersford. It's still setting the model across the country as far as hybrid learning is concerned. It's recognized throughout. We've brought modernized learning in, which is utilizing technology in the classrooms, because again, everything's around technology. It's technology not replacing education, it's not replacing curriculum, but it's integrated in. So we have the modernized learning going on. We've expanded our AP courses. We're up to like 24. We just were recognized. Within the AP is what's called Mike? Honors.
Yeah, we were on the honor roll.
Yeah, and there's only 500 school district or 500 high schools across the country that are recognized, right. And it's a huge accomplishment. So these are all the things that are going on. I don't know if I forgot anything, but then we have the Western Center where it's extremely innovative over there. We're rolling out one of my hard things was the health. Well, my heart, I shouldn't say that. One of my things that I was pushing that I want to see here at Springford, but we achieved at the Western Center was the sports medicine. Which
thank you for the beautiful video you did, by the way. That was great.
Right, which was part of the whole health and wellness concept. But so I mean, there's so much energy that's going on, and like you mentioned about we have one of the lowest tax millages in the county.
In the Tri-County.
Well, in the Tri-County,
really,
right.
Philadelphia, we're toward the bottom. The thing that Tom went over a laundry list of stuff, which we all should be proud of.
And just a few. I mean,
right, there's a
lot
more.
There's a lot more going on.
But that what we've become is more innovative as a district and ahead of the fold rather than behind. We're setting the trend rather than following the trend. So we're putting stuff out there like Tom alluded to, like the hybrid learning, which was totally different. People coming to us saying, wow, how are you guys doing this? What is that? RamQuest, all the STEM initiatives.
STEAM.
Yeah, thank you. Wanted to see if you could
You guys
talk
are
about
going to figure it out eventually, right?
By
the end of the show.
We're trying to evolve. We're trying to evolve the district from STEM to STEAM.
Right, and I said the same thing after I corrected everybody. See, now you got me saying it, or I got me saying it. But all the STEAM initiatives. This is a well-rounded student that we have spoken about forever. It's not only about our core, it's also about the extracurriculars, because when they do start getting back to the college and apply for colleges, a college wants to see that, yes, that kid may be a 90, 95 student, but what else have they done in their career? Mm-hmm. Where else have they been involved? What other initiatives? Are they involved in athletics? Are they involved in music? Are they in the clubs? So what we've been trying to push more is more of a well-rounded student. Now, what does that mean for our community? It means that our kids leave Springford, like Tom said, go to college and are prepared for college, so they're more successful in college. It means that when you move into Springford, you know you're getting a quality top education, and the taxes are not, unbelievable. Yes, taxes are taxes, which will lead into the next thing we want to talk about, which is the tax reform from the state. But we have kept taxes as low as we possibly could, running a district at an extremely high level. And we didn't forego anything for the students in the process, nor did we go to the taxpayers and ask them for more and more and more for no reason.
So everything's working together. You have the hybrid, hands-on,
Yes.
you have stations, and then you have RamQuest, thinking outside the box,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have the Innovator Center.
Right.
Everything works together. And you just mentioned taxes, where the taxes are low,
Right.
lowest millage, and right now this year's tax is at 1.7. That's the index that we're talking about, okay?
Right.
With two exceptions. Let's move into the taxes now for this year, because you just mentioned we keep everything low to get as many programs for students. Talk about the taxes for this year.
Well, let's talk about the taxes in general, because it's become a hot ticket item at the state level once again. We were all aware of HB 76, which was the elimination of property tax that went on how many years has that been now?
That's been going on for
forever.
a while. Right.
The thing that we have to remember is, of course, that is a buzz thing. I'm getting rid of taxes. My legislators are voting to get rid of property taxes. Well, yeah, that's a great media thing to do, great marketing term to do. But now let's drill down to what that really means to the local taxpayer. And Tom has really led the charge in this district of understanding from a business perspective, the whole thing that we've talked about in the past about rebuilding our business office and how successful that is. And he's brought up a lot of these points. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in saying I'm getting rid of your property taxes. And you want to drive into it more from a finance side, because you really looked into it and what that would mean to our district and our taxpayers.
Right. So basically, you're talking about, well, we're looking at somewhere between 1.7. What the state will allow us to do is somewhere between 1.7 and 4% as a tax increase, right? So Springford over the last several years have each year our tax impact to the community has been less than a previous year, because it's a multi-year process, right? So we've been driving forward to eliminate or have as low as tax increase as possible to the community. And last year was 0.7%, which is the lowest in Springford history. So other districts are also trying to do the same thing, because they understand their spending, they understand what their true operating expenses are. And so all the districts are trying to, and some are a little more successful than others. Springford has been extremely successful because we really made a lot of changes here as far as within the business office with all the financial planning and everything that we put, the whole process. So with all that, now what's happening is that once again the state Senate is proposing property tax reform, which this time it looks like it's going to go through. And at the 100,000 foot level, that's really exciting. I don't want to pay property tax. I mean, we all pay property tax.
Everybody would be excited for that.
right.
Everybody.
But then you have to say, okay, well, let's take the first layer off the onion, and what does it look like? Okay. Well, first off, the state, and I rattled these off at the board meeting the other night, so I'm going to, but right now the state's somewhere around $1.4 billion short in their budget. So they passed the budget last year with a deficit of $1.4 billion, and they still haven't been able to close that gap. They don't know where the money's going to come from. Two, as they prepare the 17-18 budget, they're looking at that deficit rolls forward, because if you don't eliminate it, it's going to roll forward. So now they know that they're going to be somewhere between $2 billion and $2.5 billion short within the budget. So with all that going on, now they have to raise $14 billion on top of all that just to eliminate property taxes. The way they're proposing doing that is they want to increase personal income tax at the state level, and they want to increase sales tax. And within their sales tax, they want to eliminate all the exceptions. So, when you go to the supermarket, some things you pay sales tax and some things you don't. Well, what they're going to change, or what they're proposing to change, is pretty much you're going to pay tax on everything. Okay? They already know going into that they haven't been able to come quite close. I think they're a few billion short, just a few billion. With this change, right? So under the hood, what's going on is they say, well, some districts we won't necessarily eliminate all their taxes. Right? Well, we don't hear that yet. Senator Andy Dinnerman told us last time we were down in Harrisburg last year that Springford may see a 40% reduction. The other thing that there's within that bill is that they're saying now if districts have a school debt, they still will have to tax their community because we're not covering school debt, which, okay, I could buy into that. Springford at one time was $285 million in debt. What we were able to do is put a financial strategy in place. We paid off about $175 million in the last 7 years. We have a huge debt drop-off coming with the bonds in about 6 years, where our debt service is going to drop in our, way down. So we're really excited about that. It's like, these are the things that takes, I mean, you plan, and you execute on a strategy, and it takes time to, to actually see the result, and we're seeing those results. But so go back to property tax reform. They don't know how they're going to raise the money to completely fund education across the state, which is about $14 billion. They still have no plan in place of how they're going to sustain that. So a district like Springford, where 82% of our funding comes from the local community, which is about $110 million. So that means the state has to now give Springford, on top of the 20 plus million that they're giving us, another 110 million, right? Which on top of that, then they said, well, Springford sees about an average 5% growth per year in expenses. That's, over the last 7 years, we've been able to get it down to 5%, which is incredible. That's how frugal we've been with our spending. So that means that not only are we going to get $110 million from the state, they have to figure out how they're going to give us 5% to cover that 5% increase, which on $100 million is another $5 million, right? So they haven't figured that out yet. The other thing that is part of this bill that they really keep quiet is that once property tax goes away, all the corporate businesses that are paying taxes won't be paying taxes anymore. So now the brunt of this is going to be on the taxpayer themselves through income tax and sales tax. So corporations don't pay any tax anymore on property values. So, and they anticipate that with this property tax reform, it's about a $2 billion per year increase is what's planned. And so this year will be 14 billion, next year it's 16 billion, and so on and so on. And they're also saying that the school districts will have to, what they'll see an increase is, which is your annual growth, which has been about 1.5%. So basically Springford's going to be looking about a 3.5% deficit right out of the chute after the first year, because they can't sustain that 5% increase.
Which means it's dropping everything that you do. Plus,
Right.
it's local control. You begin to lose local control.
You lose complete local control.
So you're not buying this. You're not seeing this happen. You're not seeing this being healthy for Springford at
I
all.
want to see it being healthy really for any district. I mean, there's a big movement across.
And I'm not against property tax reform.
No, we're all for that.
Okay, so
Right.
you don't want property tax, but this is not
Well,
what
wait a
you're
minute.
seeing.
We
is
don't.
not-
What we want is a fair and equitable system,
Right.
that we're able to keep local control, rather. And let's see how successful the state has been when we've handed them other monies. Remember, the gambling money was all supposed to go toward education. What percentage do we get? 30 to 40%.
I don't even know if we get that much.
Part goes to the pari-mutuels, which is a track to give them money back for the horses that they lost, and the other part goes to the lottery. Why didn't 100% of that come back? Why didn't our communities and our residents throughout the state go crazy and say, no, you sold this was all for education, but yet it isn't all for education. So we hand all this money to the state. Then what happens? Oh, well, we need a little bit over here, we need a little bit for that. What happens when the economy drops and people aren't making as much money as they are today, and the salaries drop, or things begin to tank, or I decide to go to Delaware now and buy that product because it's much cheaper to go down there, or whatever. I don't buy that car for the next 3 years that maybe I would have bought because the taxes are so high on that. I mean, these are the variables. We do need true property tax reform that works for everyone. And yes, our older residents are the ones that are affected the most, those who are retired because they have no steady income. So why don't we look at a true reform that helps benefit them also? Why don't we take that other 60% or so from the lottery, from the casino money, and filter it back in to offset their property taxes, like other states do, like New York does a STAR program. This is all, like I said, smoke and mirrors. We're getting rid of your property tax. Look at how great we are. Yes, but on the flip side, like Tom just alluded to, what happens? And when you already have a deficit of over $1 billion and you're looking at a couple billion more, eventually you can't keep doing this.
Well, and New Jersey actually went down this road several years ago and failed miserably, and
Right.
now they're suffering from the after effects of that. And property taxes are soaring in New Jersey. Businesses have pulled out. I mean, there's a huge ripple effect. And again, just to give an example, like what Joe talked about with the shell game of money, here's the thing. When the state's sitting on top of all this money and they got issues, where do you think they're gonna pull money from?
Right.
If they're sitting there with a bucket, and they're saying that all the money coming in is gonna go into a reserve, an account which is only controlled by the legislators, right? And which could easily just, vote and say, well, that's the Social Security. Social Security had years ago had one of the highest reserves in the country. And then the U.S. government start looking at it and saying, well, you know what, let's just take a little bit. They won't notice it's gone. And look what they've done to the Social Security should have gone on. That's a show in itself.
Right.
But gone on for, and look what they've done to Social Security. So there are no checks and balances in place anymore when you give complete control of this to the state. And just to give an example, what we're talking about is that for the last 2 years, I'll just go 2 years. Each year when a budget came out, the legislator was extremely proud to say we got more spending in education. So last year's budget, I think we got an additional $300,000 in education spending. This year we got roughly $400,000 in educational spending. And everyone ran around, all legislators went around, they were like boasting about how we fought and got more money for education, right? So then very quietly, what they don't talk about is over the last several years, school districts have had to pay into the PSERS because the PSERS fund has become unstable. There's a huge shortfall. That's the retirement system for the state employees and the state and the teachers and all that. So they're billions short, billions. So every year the school district is paying on top of what we're required to pay an additional percentage. So this year we're going to be up to roughly almost 31% on top of what we're paying already into the system that we're required to pay. But what they've done very quietly is they had fanfare all over the place about the additional spending in education. And then underneath, very quietly, they send out a memo to the business offices and saying, yeah, we have to increase that PSER rate by 0.5% on top of what we're paying. Well, when you're talking about millions that we're paying, 0.5% is a lot of money. 0.5% translates to $300,000. So up here, hey, we got in 2 years, we got $700,000 more. Quietly, you have to pay another $1.2 million to the state in PSERS. So the net is that we're paying $1.2 million more, and we got $700,000. You know what I mean?
$500,000.
So it's a $500,000 that we still have to make up. But you don't hear about that. You don't hear the legislative go running around saying, yes, we had to increase that PSER payment. So that's just an example of what could happen if the communities lose complete control of their educational systems, because when all that money starts pouring in, which I don't think, because there's been financial analysts have come back and said, when you do this, just when you start to increase personal income tax and you start to increase sales tax, people will spend less money.
Exactly. It's the other way.
So it has a reverse effect. And then if the economy slows, guess what? They even spend less money.
Right.
So if they're spending less money and those two things, and they're making less money, or there's been studies that have shown that the average salary hasn't increased in the last 10 years or 15 years, right? It's stayed the same. So if people aren't making more money, their personal income tax isn't going up, but you're taking more of their personal income tax because they're paying into it. And it's, some people, it's maybe an extra $1,000 a year, but it's $1,000 off their spendable income. So that's $1,000 less they have to spend. And then they're like, well, I'm not going to pay that because I'm not going to pay 7.5% or 8% tax on that.
Right.
I'm going to go to the supermarket, and why do I have to pay tax on bananas?
So where do we stand with this tax reform right now?
Where we stand is that the Senate, I think this week, is voting on whether to do it, and then it'll go to the legislative house, and then the governor will have to decide what happens. So they're pushing to have it in next year's budget as we roll up 17, 18.
Right, July 1st.
Right, July 1st. And I think we're going to have a major issue if it does go through.
Well, we'll get by to. we'll get by the first year.
Yes, but after that, it's going to be an issue.
Because they're going
of how it's
to
administered.
they're going to borrow, they're going to put, you know, because they have to. I mean, they have to
Right,
have the
if they're gonna
money.
look good first
right?
time
They
around.
have to look good and everything else. So the first year, but then the ripple effect is when it will kick in this 18-19 school year. And you know, the end result of all this is what's going to happen is that school districts, not only Springford, but school districts are going to end up cutting. They're going to have to cut programs, and class sizes are going to increase. That's as simple as that. Because you have to reduce expenses, and to reduce expenses, in a school district, there's only a few things you could do, right? And it's like cut programs or increase class sizes.
And I think that part of it is there are some state legislators who believe that the government shouldn't be in education. And that's a whole thing for itself. I'm not going to debate back and forth, but so you could see where you're driving toward. You know, I've always been a product of public education. My son has been a product of public education. My wife, I think I can speak for Tom and his family, possibly yours family.
Absolutely.
You know, the public education system works. And we've seen, you know, we can go the other side of this that we didn't talk about at all, that I've yelled about over the years, the charter system. and not brick and mortar only, but also cyber charter, and the amount of money that's wasted that we put into those programs that no one's really looking at from a state level. Oh, it just sits out here. It's probably in the billions across the state.
Oh God, yeah. Well, not billions.
Well, we are probably over $1 million, but
Well, we're at 2.5 million.
Right, so if you add it all up. But so there's a lot of things that will happen, and hopefully it's the right course of action the state takes. Now, we know you have somewhere to be. You got a party or something to go to?
Absolutely, always.
Yeah,
always.
that's why your voice is so hoarse.
Just because we started this whole conversation
Right.
about the budget. And so we started off the year with the preliminary budget, which we have to do. And, you know, so we don't actually talk about what, you know, our preliminary tax increases may be, because that drives the whole rumor mill.
Right.
Right now, when I talk about that 5% growth in expenses, so when we prepared a budget, we basically show the increases in expenses, but we don't actually show increases in revenues because it's too early in the process to understand what the revenue increases are going to look like. As you go into February, March, and that, we start to get a better feel of revenue. And our revenue is off of transfer taxes, earned income taxes, real estate, you know, assessments, you know, new real estate coming into the area, you know, all that stuff. So we start to get a better handle on what, and then that's where we start to offset those expenses with the revenues, and we start to get a real feel. Our goal has been every year to be less than the previous year, and we've been
Right.
extremely successful since 2010 doing that. Right now, but we have to build in 0.6% each year to just cover those PSER payments. I mean, like we have a fund and we're taking money out of the fund, but we have to keep replenishing the fund. Excuse me.
I don't ask.
I guess we're
Steve Bonnets? No, he's not here. But our goal is to be, we're driving towards being somewhere between 0 and 1% or closer. I mean, we're trying to get to 0 this year. That is our goal.
every year,
Well, every year it's 0. I mean, that's what we try.
right?
But, you know, to get to 0.7 was a heck of an accomplishment. So, which would have been really 0 last year if we didn't have to build in the 0.6. So we're really working hard. Finance Committee is going to be putting a preliminary recommendation within the next month or two, as far as, not a recommendation, kind of where we're at. And, you know, we have to have this thing in place by May.
Yes.
And we'll come back
Oh,
and
yeah,
we'll talk about
yeah.
that.
We'll be talking about that a lot.
And by the way, I'm not the one that needs to be somewhere.
You're not?
No.
Oh, well, that phone call.
Absolutely.
Right.
I think that
was-
just proves that he's
You know,
got
some people
somewhere
are
to go.
important.
He's got a
I don't know how
party to go
important
to.
that was.
I
but-
got calls. I got calls coming in all the time.
Yeah, he said. Okay, well then it's been each month we meet. Oh, am I doing the closing or you?
No,
Oh, you were able to do it?
absolutely.
Oh, okay,
But thank
good.
you very much for putting up with this little,
Well, we put up with that for years, so.
not this.
Oh, okay.
Oh, the way you win, it's
Yeah, you went
like-
like this. I'm like, well, wait a minute now.
I generally don't eat breakfast until I come because,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Ouch. Okay.
So, no, but thank you for once again putting together a wonderful show, and thank
Yes.
you to your staff,
Staff,
for
great staff. And it was good that they called Tom and tell him, okay, enough talking, Tom. We have to
Well,
dial this up."
that's probably was the phone call.
Actually, have Joe
No,
turn to the
Tom.
left a little bit.
Yeah,
We got to get
that-
his better side.
Isn't that great? All right, well, we'll let you wrap
Yeah,
it up
wrap it
because
up,
you
Steve.
have
Can we
places
wrap
to
it
go,
up?
people to see.
He's got to go make a phone call.
He said, well, I don't want to know about his phone call.
Rumor
but-
had it that Dr. Roach was going to drop in, and I'm bummed. We
tried to talk long enough.
He didn't come in.
Kill
We were
some
like,
time.
You
where
did talk. You
Yeah,
did talk.
Did we talk?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll see you guys next month.
Next, well, I hope so.
Well,
And remember,
we're trying to get you the schedule.
That'll be
we'll
better.
be on the website finally, right? Our program because it
Yeah,
doesn't appear there
absolutely.
right
Let's
Yeah.
get this one up on Ram TV.
It's going to be. You're going to see it tomorrow.
This is-
Tomorrow,
now.
Tom.
What's the date though? Because tomorrow when this
Tomorrow never comes. Remember that?
Yeah. So
You never put a date to anything.
That's
There you
right.
go.
Please join us next month as we go on board with Joe Cerisi and Tom DeBello. Have a good one, everyone.